Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks for taking the time out to join us this morning while we take a look at using CCH document management and getting the most out of that product. Today is aimed really at two sets of people. So mostly it's for people who already have document management. We want to make sure that you're getting the most out of that. And then for people who maybe don't have a document management system, there'll be some things that you see as we go through here. You're going to want to think about when you're considering what system you might put into your own business. All right, so the way that today's going to go, so I'll give you a couple of things that we're going to think about when we're looking at why document management is an important resource. Then I'm going to hand over to Nick, who's going to share a number of hints and tips, including some live demos, just to make sure you're really getting the most out of document management. And then what we'll do, we'll finish up. We'll have a couple of things for you to think about how you could measure the value of having a DM system, and we'll also then have questions and answers session as well. There is probably on your right hand side of your pane a little question box. If you pop any questions that you have in there, we'll answer those as we go along. Okay, so two of us on the call this morning. So there's myself and Nick. So as a little bit of background for you guys, I've been working in the practice industry in the accounting industry for 20 years. So my background was actually as an auditor and preparing accounts and VAT returns and that kind of stuff, and then IT for accountants. I then worked for myself for a bit, and Wolters Kluwer was then one of my customers, and now I'm the lead product manager for all of the non-compliance products. So things like practice management, document management, and central workflow reporting, both the on-premise and online as well. And then we've got our very talented Nick. So Nick qualified in AAT, and Nick was in professional services team for a long time. So being out with you guys in your practices, getting you up to speed with different products. And now that's what Nick does. So Nick's role is to make sure that everyone's getting the very most amount of value out of the products that you have. So if you don't have a DM system at the moment, or even if you do, there are a couple of things you should be thinking here. So people are working from home a lot more at the moment. So this is really something where you want to be looking at how can an electronic document management system aid you in that. And also when you're in the office as well, how can you do things like make sure that documents and emails are visible to everyone across your practice, making sure that they're not siloed just in one person's inbox or maybe on a file on someone's desk. Other things you want to think about is how can you make sure that you are maintaining a really high quality of service to your clients, and how can you make sure that your clients want to work with you. So what are the things that you could do to make the way that you work and the way that you interact with them a whole lot more efficient? Cost savings are always something that accountants in particular, we're good at looking at this. So how can you be making your business more efficient? How can you be reducing costs and not wasting money unnecessarily? And disaster recovery is always something that we should be thinking about. So consider where at the moment, if you've got maybe all of your if you're on a paper-based system, if you had a flood or a fire, or for some reason you weren't able to get into your premises, how could you continue to work efficiently? And also, even if you do have files stored on your servers, or maybe you've got them stored into OneDrive or something like that, if files get deleted, moved, how can you quickly find them? How can you make sure you have got correct version history and all this kind of stuff that you're going to need? From a legal side, electronic document admissibility and also retention policies. So if you are storing documents either physically or electronically. If it's physical, you need to think about your retention policies and how can you manage that in an efficient way. If you've got electronic copies of documents, that's all well and good, but you need to manage still your retention. So how can you make sure you're not retaining documents for longer than you should be? But then also from an electronic point of view, how can you, if you needed to, produce documents to a court that were in a legally admissible format? And also, of course, at all times, we want to be thinking about how can you improve your data and document security, both for you and for your clients. And then final things to think about here before I hand over to Nick. So collaboration, so working together. So whether you're sitting next to people, whether you're working remotely, you need to think about how can you allow all of the people within your practice to easily access documents all in one central area, so you don't have separate repositories of some stuff saved over here and some stuff saved somewhere else. Think about how can you quickly and efficiently find documents. How can you see what stage they're up to, what actions need to be taken on them. Think about audit controls, version controls. So as I was saying earlier on, if you have got either printed documents, how can you make sure you've got the correct versions? If you've got electronic documents, how can you be certain who has viewed these documents, who has changed these documents, and how can you make sure that they are admissible in a court if you needed to? And then also a key thing here, where you've got electronic copies of documents, how can you make sure that you've only got a single copy of them? So we all know what it's like. It's very easy for someone to work on a document on their own machine, email it across, that gets pinged backwards and forwards between different people. How do you know which is the correct version? And even when you're using things like OneDrive or Dropbox, you can still end up with multiple versions of documents. How can you make sure that you've got that you're working on the latest version, and how can you make sure that you're not just ending up with a huge proliferation of documents throughout your practice? So just a couple of things that you should be thinking about for your practice or for your business. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to hand over to Nick, who's then going to give a whole load of useful hints and tips for people who already have document management, just to make sure that you're getting the most out of it.
Perfect. Thank you, Evan. Just need to be able to share my screen. Perfect. Okay, thank you very much, Evan. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is integration with Outlook and a few of the elements that we've got included in document management with that. But first off, I've got a quick question to ask of you, which is, do you feel like you have enough visibility with correspondence between you and your clients with emails? You can see these coming through. Just an interesting one, this, especially with people using Outlook at the minute with DM integration, and probably there's quite a few people on the line who aren't using a document management system to manage email interaction with clients. So let's just have a look at what the responses are here. So I'll just share these on screen for you as well. So hopefully you can see there, 57% of people said yes, you do feel like you have enough visibility with correspondence between you and your staff and your clients for email interaction, which is good to see. We've got 23% of no, and I expect those are those are the firms who aren't using a document management system to track that. A proportion of those might be existing users of CCH document management and probably haven't got the right settings set up. So I'm going to go through some hints and tips to look at that. But even the people who said they do have good visibility, there might be some tips in here that could increase your staff's use of document management even better. Some of these are on screen there, where we can see the ability to drag and drop emails directly into the client file, but with the correct tags applied to that already, rather than having to go and manually tag them correctly. We've got a dedicated button to send and file when you're sending an email out, because what we find with a lot of live sites using document management is that the incoming emails are fantastic. People are filing those correctly into the relevant client file, but the emails that are sent out to clients are a bit sporadic, which ones do and don't get filed to the right place. I'm looking at server-based filing. So if a staff member is out on site, or is off on holiday or off sick, how it works is that if you've got an automatic email filing setting turned on CCH, if the email comes into that server, it will file it automatically into the client record where a previous email has been filed. So it's not a manual filing setup if you've got the automatic essence turned on, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so I'm just going to jump into my CCH product just to show you in Outlook some hints and tips that we've got available to you. So it's just worth knowing that I'm running Outlook 2010 here. Obviously, I expect you're running a more up-to-date version of Outlook than me, probably Outlook 365. And what we've got in the bottom left-hand corner is my CCH email filing plugin. There are some settings in here which I recommend you should all look at, especially on your existing users and some of your staff as well. Whereas if I go to my cogs down here in the bottom left-hand corner and go to options, the third tab down is filing. Now, there's some settings in here which we all should be aware of and need your staff to have consistent settings to each other. And the first box I've got ticked for me is file email on send. Now, how that works is whenever you send an email out of Outlook, it will bring up the pop-up box to upload a document every single time and get your staff members to file those sent emails more consistently. Like I said before, with the incoming emails, people are used to dragging and dropping over the relevant client, but with a sent email, if they've not got that box ticked to file email on send, the sent email will not be filed in the system for any other staff member to see. Now, for people who only really email internally, having the box on the right-hand side ticked as well means that the pop-up box to upload a sent email will only appear if the email address they're sending it to collates to a email address in the CCH database. So I would recommend we leave that one unticked, because it's going to bring up the pop-up box every single time you send an email and ask you if you want to file it. The two which I always think are really relevant are the automatically filed conversation replies for sent and received emails, which works that if you send an email out of the CCH system and you've already filed the email which has come in, it will automatically file any replies to the same client that the previous email in that conversation has already been filed against. So having the first one not ticked, and I always then just go not tick, tick, not tick, tick, not tick, tick, not tick, ticked, and have those. That is my standard settings that I would always recommend to existing sites. If anyone's got any questions about that, in terms of what the internal policies that might mean for your users, please do fire those into the questions box and I can monitor those as we go through. But email filing, I would say, is the key difference between not having a document management system and having one, because at the minute I expect those 23% of people who said they don't have enough visibility across the firm for their email correspondence between staff and clients is due to not having an email filing function. So, for example, if I select this Simon Chester email here, and if it's the first one that's not been filed in the CCH system, it would be a simple case of seen in the bottom left-hand corner, I've got Simon Chester, Harry Hamilton and WK FRS 102 Limited. The reason why they are appearing is because the email address simon.jb.chester@gmail.com is associated to each of those three records. Now, the way in which we've designed the email filer is for you to make the initial decision which of those three people the email is filed against. Other document management systems will allow you will just say file against all three of them, but it could have personal information relating to Simon Chester's personal tax information, not to the limited company. So for GDPR purposes, we say, which one do you want it to file against initially? And it's a simple case of drag and drop. Now, I get a little warning here telling me I've already filed it. You shouldn't get that. and then you get the common pop-up box that you see here. Now, some settings that we have in document management that really allow you to file it correctly is that if I go to document type, we'll see we've got lots of different document types to file against here. But by choosing the relevant assignment that it relates to, it filters the document types to only the types available against that particular assignment. So what you'll see is for accountancy, I don't have the ability to file things like tax return. I've only got the ability to file accounts and correspondence in this situation. You'd simply click accounts and then OK, and that would file that email straight away into CCH. Now, the difference with CCH as well is that if I went to Simon Chester now and open up his client record, you are able to access that email from within the document center. So you can see I've got this one I just filed there under type accounts. I could, if I wanted to, double click on that email and it would open up Outlook from within Central. So instead of having to go and find that email in Outlook and then reply to it from within there, you could just double click on the email in CCH Central and hit reply from within there. Okay. So it's all about just grabbing all that information and correspondence between you and your clients and putting it in one consistent database such as CCH Document Management. So if you've not got enough visibility, that is where you're going to get the most amount of gains with document management, is looking at the email filer. So a couple of questions I think have just come in at this point in time. So once you have filed to DM, is the email removed or deleted from Outlook? So that's perfect question there from Carolyn. So if I come back to my CCH screen here and drop into Outlook, one of the settings that we've got in here under filing is delete email after filing. So if you've got that box ticked, if it's filed in CCH, it will delete it out of your inbox or sent box. I personally don't like that one ticked from my perspective, just on the basis that I like it sat in my inbox as a bit of a to-do list, but it can be filed in CCH and stay in your inbox if you leave that unticked. So they are the personal preferences that I have, but I go out to lots of firms and there are staff members who like that once it's been filed, it's removed out of their inbox so they don't have to deal with it. But again, that's a personal preference, Carolyn. So again, it's totally up to you how you want to have it, but some firms like to have those boxes ticked so it removes it out of their inbox, so you don't have 3,000 emails set in your inbox even if you've already filed them. It's totally up to you how you want to manage that. I believe there are a couple more questions that have come in on there. Let's see if I can find those questions. Okay. I believe Evan's answered one of the questions in terms of a problem with conditional format in Outlook. So I think Evan will contact Gary directly on that one. And the same, I think, with Bruce, where Evan's going to contact you directly in terms of an issue you've got with your Outlook system there, which could be practice specific. Okay. So the next element we're going to look at is scanning and process management. So looking at scanning information into CCH either via incoming post, or maybe want to scan an entire working papers file into CCH, and how you can speed that process up. One of the key points of that is that all scanned documents become fully word searchable. I think the term that a lot of you will be aware of is OCR, in terms of optical character recognition. So as long as it's of a high enough quality, all of that document will be able to be searched upon in the contents of it using the document management system, using the search document content tag in document management. I can show you that as well. Now it says CCH workflow is closely aligned to our document management and tax products, enabling you to standardize processes around your firm. So I expect quite a lot of you are using CCH workflow around the compliance products, around probably personal tax and accounts production primarily, but you can use workflow around document management as well. So utilizing it for engagement letters to make sure it's gone through all internal processes, and basically any letter that goes out, maybe that needs to be approved by a partner or manager before it's sent out, you can build internal workflows against that. Also, the workflow can automatically lock a document once it gets to the end of that process, so no one can then edit that letter once it's been sent out to the client, which is a very useful part of that document management system. I do have a poll for you in this circumstance as well, which is, do you feel that you are processing incoming correspondence efficiently? So that's to do with incoming post, any documents maybe that you need to scan into an accounts file, and just see how you're going along that process. Okay. Now, incoming post is something we get a lot of questions about, because the standard process, if you're not using CCH document management and the scan profiler, is that people tend to receive the incoming post, someone opens it on reception, and then just hand it out to each individual staff member, of which they then deal with it themselves. Now, if I have a look at the responses that we've got there, we've got 47% of people feel like they're processing efficiently. So it's not quite as high as the correspondence poll that I had before. We've got 36% of people saying no, they don't feel like they're processing efficiently, and 17% not sure. So what I'm going to show you is our scan profiling system, which some of you may be aware of, some of those 47%, but even the people who are aware that they feel like they are scanning it efficiently, what I can show you is maybe an even better way of doing it using our scan system. It's possibly our least utilized part of the document management system, the scan profile, especially on the reception desk, but it can have a massive effect on how the internal system of document management works. Now, one element I've not mentioned there on the screen is KPI alert monitoring. Now, I expect a proportion of the firms online today are utilizing KPI alert monitoring. It's another product that we do have in the CCH suite of products, and what it does is it checks lots of internal key point indicators of your practice all the time, going along in the background. And what it can do with document management is allow you to check certain parts, such as if a client doesn't have a certain 3 anti-money laundering documents saved in a certain client's document center, what it can do is flag up to the relevant manager or partner that is responsible for that, and make that staff member aware that they maybe need to update the anti-money laundering documents on a particular client. So it's not just around the compliance areas for KPI alert monitoring. We can integrate that with workflow and with the document management system to really check anything that we have in there. So I'm just going to take you through the scanning process of CCH. So if I come back to Central here, I've got a button at the top which is Scan. If I click Scan, it will take me into the scan profiler. Now, I get an error message saying no scanner found, just because I'm now doing this from home and I don't have a scanner connected directly to it. On the reception desk, I expect you've probably got a multifunction scanner that's connected on network to your to the end user's computer, so they'll be able to scan it directly into this screen from your multifunction device, probably a photocopy or a scanner on the reception desk. But I'm just going to have to browse to a particular document that I've got in here. So if I go to my working papers, and I've got a valuation report in here, and it's just going to pull through quite a large document into this area of the system, as if I've scanned in, say, 30 or 40 pieces of incoming post. So it's just going to scan it all in one document. So rather than scanning each document individually and filing it in the relevant place in document management, what you can do is open up all the individual posts and put it in one great big pile and scan it into the document scan it into the system as if it's one large document. And it's just pulling that through into my CCH system now. It's quite a large document, that's why it's taking quite a bit of time to come through in here. I'll just see if we've got any questions in the meantime through here. Okay. Right, it's just been switched yet. Apologies for that if you just saw the wrong screen. Okay, it's just loading up. It's quite a large document, I think, that I've added in here.
Nick, I think it's fair to say that for standard size documents that are being pulled in, it's a second or so. It's just the size of document you're bringing in for what you want to be demoing.
It's quite large. Yeah, absolutely right, Evan. It was the first one I pulled up from when I looked at it last week. So yeah, apologies if it's taken a little bit of time, but yeah, it is quite a large document. I think it's 30 or 40 pages that I'm adding in here.
There's also a question that's just coming from Orla. Could we scan to a network folder and browse as you did to the file?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a common way that a lot of firms do it, where if they don't have access to the reception scanner that's connected to their CCH system, yeah, absolutely, you can scan it in as one large document that I've done here, save it to network folder, and then browse to it as I did there. You can see I've got 37 pages in this particular document, so this is as if I've got 37 pieces of incoming post potentially. And what you can do is you can select the document on the left-hand side, and it will show you a live version of that document. Now, as I've mentioned before, all these have been OCR'd, so you'll be able to search in this document if it's of a particular quality. But what you can do is, if the first 3 pages of this document is one particular piece of post, and the 4th one is the start of the next one, you can then use the split button, which is the pair of scissors, and separate it as a separate document. Now, this is where the key driver of using Scan is, because you can then file as many documents as you need into the relevant client area in one go, rather than doing scan, file, scan, file, scan, file. You scan it in one go, put as many splits as you need to in, and you can rename them. So if I call this one test 3, for example, I'll call this one test 2. And I'll call this one test 1. It's also worth noting that any of these documents here, you can rotate to the right, or if it's landscape rather than portrait, you can rotate them. And also this one here, if it is a piece of marketing documentation, you actually decide that you don't want to file it, you can just click delete, and it will delete that selected document out of the scan list on the left hand side. All you would then need to do is select all and click add. And again, it will go through that process of profiling them all up together and bring up the upload box that we're used to seeing with document management, that we saw before in the email filer of putting it into the correct place in document management. This is where you could then collate it with workflow, where it can notify the relevant manager of that client to see that that document has been added into the document management system as well, rather than having to then email them and say this post has come in, or go and hand it out by hand. This one would then notify and put a notification into their task list to say that a document has come in, does it need to be actioned? So it's all about collating all the other workflows that you've got at the minute, but also in document management as well. So the scan system, probably the most underused part. I expect every single user of CCH has got that scan profiler in their document management license. Now, if you haven't got that scan button at the top, it's worth probably contacting your account manager. I did have one a couple of weeks ago where they've been a very long-standing user of document management, over 10 years, and they didn't have the scan license on their account. So if you don't have that button at the top, it's probably worth notifying your account manager, and they can get that set up for you. Now, this is where you're able to tag the document to the relevant client. It's worth noting here that you can actually tag multiple clients to the same document. It's a part that existing users probably are unaware of, especially around a document that relates to multiple clients. You might have a system in the minute where you save the same document more than one time into the relevant document management system relating to those clients. What you've got here is you can click the 3 dots on the right hand side, and if it's relating to a client of mine called John Bain, but also relating to more, I could click in here and choose, for example, WKFRS is going to file it under WKFRS 102. And what you'll see on the left-hand side is now filing it under multiple clients, which means if I change it in John Bain, it's also going to change it in WKFRS 102 Limited. So it works very well for, say, if you've got a document that relates to a group of companies or a husband and wife, you save the document into the system once, but tag it multiple times, which means you're not going to get duplicates of that document, or one being out of date if one's been changed and the last one hasn't. So just be aware that you can tag one document to multiple clients in the document management system. Okay, then we've got a couple more questions in here as well. Let's come through. What type of scan driver, ScanSnap or Twain? Are you aware of the answer to that one, Evan?
No, I'm not, but that's absolutely something we can get the answer to.
Yeah, very good question on that one. So yeah, we'll get that question directly to you on that one. So the next element would. Oh, carry on. Sorry.
So one of the other questions there was, did you say that these documents were being OCR'd?
Yes. So using that scan procedure, it will go through the OCR scanning system, and we'll be able to check that when you search document content for that particular text. Now, it does have to go through as a certain quality. So if you are handwriting on a piece of paper, it's obviously not going to be able to OCR that. But yeah, if it's of a decent enough quality and you've got good enough scanner, absolutely, yeah, it will OCR that document as well. Okay, so we've got another question there. Would you use the add document rather than the upload section in the bottom right? It's a good question from Darren. So in the CCH system we've seen there, we do have an upload button in the bottom right hand corner where you can file it against the relevant assignment, job, and one there if you wanted to. I personally prefer just the add button at the top, just because it's a consistent screen that we've got that you see everywhere else in the CCH document management system, whether you're filing from accounts production or from personal tax, you see that upload box. That's just my personal preference. But yeah, absolutely, as Darren's mentioned, at the bottom, you can, if you wanted to, file it against the relevant client, assignment and job while you're going through it on the left-hand side. Absolutely, it's a very good point that Darren's made there. So yeah, absolutely, you could do that and then click the upload box in the bottom right if you're comfortable with doing that. Personally, I like the add button because it's a consistent use, but yeah, absolutely, there's different ways in which different users could use the system. That's a very good point. Thanks for that, Darren. So yeah, existing user systems. That probably sometimes use it in a slightly different way than me. There's no right or wrong way to use it. It's just what people like to use the system in a different way. So the next element we're going to look at is protecting the security of your information in CCH with document management systems. So looking at a secure centralized storage of documents rather than just having it on your network drive or on people's laptops, because what happens with people using a network drive is there's no consistent filing structure, people saving it on their C drive as well, and then if the laptop gets lost or broken, those documents get lost as well that are stored on that laptop. And seeing how that works now, I've got a poll on this one as well, just looking at the security of CCH, just asking, did you know that CCH document management comes with an internal HR function? It's an element which this is just really for my benefit, that when I come out and do document management implementation, a lot of firms who have document management, from my understanding, don't believe that there's an employee document management storage as well. And looking like the responses that are coming through here, that's a common thread that we get. So wow, this is a lot higher than I was expecting. It's coming through. Okay, we've got 60% of people voted so far on this one. Okay, I'll just close that. And the answer to that is 91% of people aren't aware that there's an internal HR storage information for employees. So I think actually that's the first thing I'm going to show you with document management security, because I really wasn't expecting it to be as high as that, especially if you're using the system. And after that, we're going to understand how you can make that more secure with your secure logons, task permissions, and making sure that, especially if you are going to start using the HR facility included in document management, that you have to make sure that the task permissions surrounding that are strong. Because if people are storing information around HR information, you really need to make sure that people can't access that who don't have the permission to do so. So really setting up those task permissions are really key. Now, audit in history, so understanding what's happened to each document, whether it's been edited, whether it's been deleted, or who added it in, is a really key part of the system to make sure that you're able to check if people are using the system correctly. So understanding how a version control of the system is really key. So I can show you how you can roll back documents if people have made any changes. Document locking. I made a point to that with the workflow, where it can lock a document once it's got to the end of the workflow, but you can do it manually as well, which means that you can lock that document so no one can make any changes. Again, it's a key point on that one to make sure that you do lock down the task permission. That means that people can unlock documents as well. So making sure that people do use that properly. And also it's worth noting that document management is fully GDPR compliant. It has been for years, but even before the GDPR regulation came in, but we have added some extra functionality in there over the last couple of releases with the GDPR deletion date relating around the full client and the document as well, just so that if you do, if a client does leave for whatever reason, you can make sure that you are removing documents that agrees to your GDPR policy for your firm. Okay. So I'm just going to show you in CCH how you can store documents internally in an employee area. So if I go to my employees here, and if I search for myself in the database and click on Nick Moss, again, some of you who are part of the administrative area for your CCH system will probably go into this area to update security groups and internal task permissions for certain employees. But the tab across the far right hand side here, I've got Document Center. What you'll see if you're using the document management system is this looks almost identical in terms of layout to what you're currently using. Now, I haven't got any documents stored in here for myself, but the way in which the functionality works is exactly the same. So you could store things in here such as disciplinary action, employee contracts, holiday request forms, anything you store internally probably in a different area than CCH to store secure internal HR documents, you can store in here. What you'll be able to have then is a fully locked down area that collates to all the internal information with personal information like names and addresses, birthdays, and keep track of all that and send out mail merges to your internal staff as well with all that information. So that's included with CCH Document Management. You don't have to pay any more for that. It's part of it. You just have an internal employee document center as well. We're not saying you have to use it by any means, obviously, because there's a number of people not using it who are using document management currently, but it's there if you want to use it. So please do access all of our information on the support site of getting you up and running on that, particularly around the task permissions to stop users from accessing their internal document center. Because it's worth noting that when I use document management myself at a firm in Bolton with about 50 staff in there, I knew that the document center was there. I could see it. I could click on the button that said document center, but I was not able to see any documentation that was stored in there. So it was only partners, I believe, that had access to that function. So do make sure that you have that locked down correctly, so that you're not going to get one staff member with incorrect task permissions being able to see any information that is in there. Okay, so if you've got any more questions around that, please do fire them into myself and Evan, and we can go through those at that point in time. Okay, the next element I'm going to go through is looking at the audit trail of a document and seeing how to roll back a specific version of that document. So I've got a client in my system that I'm going to use for this purpose called John Bain. Open up John Bain as a client, and I will go to his document center. Okay, and I have, as an example, a VAT return here. Okay, I'm just gonna have to minimize this so I can see. Okay, so if I go to the right hand side, I've got my properties. Can you see I've got there version number 1 of that document, and it was created by me, and the date was 24th of January, and it was updated into the system on the 15th of April at 10:22. You've got a full audit trail there telling you who added it into the system and when. Now, if I tick this box and go and edit this document, it's going to open up Microsoft Excel. And I'm going to just make a very slight change to this document. I'm just going to put test in that box there. I'm now going to close the document. I'm going to cancel out of that. I'm going to check it back in. So if I now go back to my, okay, is it going to let me check that back in? We'll see if I refresh that. Okay, for some reason that has not checked that one out, but this working papers document I've got here, if I'm going to edit this one here, it might have been because it was a CSV file, it didn't like that one. I'm going to make a change to that one there. And close it and check it back in. What we'll see on the right hand side, if I just refresh this for this particular document, is can you see I've now got version 3 of this one. So I'm just going to change the dates on this one. So date was uploaded with 17th of December. And it was last modified by someone called Lee Bennett. If I go to version history, this would show me all the documents, the history of this particular document once it was added in by me and made some changes been made there. If I was to click on any of these blue hyperlinks, it would show me the version of that document as a read-only file. So if I went to this first one here and I clicked on it, it would open it up in Excel as a read-only document, and I could look at it and say, right, that is the version of that document I want to have. I could now right-click on that version history and revert to this version. So if I click revert, it doesn't mean you're going to lose version 2 and version 3. What it actually means is it's going to promote version 1 to version 4. You can see it's there, it says reverted to version 1, which actually allows me to go and say, actually, version 3 was correct. The changes that we've made were the right ones. I could now right click and revert to this version and make version 3, version 5. So you never lose any of that information. The aspect which this became really useful to me in practice was around a document which is rolled forward each year and updated. using the save copy as function. So they should have selected the tick box and choose save copy as and roll it forward to next year. What the user actually done was just tick the box, edit, strip information out and put their information on top. So it effectively had no information for the previous year's document. What I was able to do was to tick the box, save copy as and roll forward that information for another document, but then roll back to the previous one which the employee had incorrectly overwritten. So utilizing that version history is a really useful part of the system. I mentioned document locking as well, so we wanted to make sure that this document was no longer being able to make any changes. I could tick that box and click lock at the top, and what you'll see is it will put a little padlock on it here. If I hover over it, it will show when it was put on and who put that lock on. You can see there. So, but utilizing the workflow connected to document management can automatically put that lock on for you. So it's just a nice little part of the system that you can click together. So yeah, I think we've got a couple more questions on this that have come through. Okay, so we've got there from Albert, how would you ensure that HR functionality will only be accessed by the appropriate department or individual? So that is from the task permission area. So if I went to my task permissions area in CCH under the security area, file maintenance, security and task permissions, you could make sure in here for the document management area for a DM user, the employee area is turned off. So you need to make sure for all staff members that have access to document management, if you're going to use the employee HR area, that these two task permissions are turned off. So for me, they were turned off, so I knew it was there, but I could not access the document management system. So there was a big red cross that said, you do not have access to this, please contact your system administrator to gain access. So you just need to make sure that that task permission under document management and employee has not got a tick in that box. Okay, now if they have a tick in the box with full access, that means they can then destroy documents out of there as well. So just make sure that you are going to use that. Hopefully that's answered your question, Albert. Okay. So the next element we're going to go through is looking at CCH OneClick. So I expect a number of the firms online today are utilizing CCH OneClick, which is a collaborative cloud documents and messaging portal. There are a few other elements in there relating to open integration, connecting your cloud bookkeeping systems to accounts production, and an MTD for VAT portal, and a digital tax account link between HMRC and CCH Personal Tax. But the one we're going to focus on today is the documents and messaging portal. And I do again have another poll for you here today saying, are you already collaborating through an online portal with your clients? So I'm just going to launch this one through for you there and see how many people are actually doing this. Okay. Excellent, we've got half the people voting already. And I'm aware that a number of people voting yes or no to this may not be using CCH OneClick. They could be using some of the other products out there on the market. But I expect that a proportion of people who are also saying no to this are using CCH but have not got either the old portal system, which we might have migrated everyone across CCH OneClick, or the existing CCH OneClick product. So again, we've got 70% of people on the line voting on that there. So if I share that across to you, you can see that 60% of people are already using a collaborative portal system with their compliance products. So that's fantastic to see. Obviously 34% of people aren't using one. So what we're going to try and do is just explain to them and the people who are existingly using ones the real benefits of using one rather than just using email or the post. The speed of being able to approve documents and seeing that notification that's come through and have an audit trail that it's been approved or rejected from the client is really, really key. So what we're going to go through here is really showing you how to use the workspaces for yourself as the end user and really your client's experience as well. Because one thing that you will see as an end user is you never actually get to experience what it's like from the client side. So actually showing you what it's like from their side is key, and understanding how they would navigate around the system and approve and hopefully not very often reject documents. How to secure access to all the documents as well. And also have access and integration with the compliance products such as accounts production, personal tax and corporation tax as well, and have those filings straight from there into the OneClick system and into document management. And then actually going through and approving a document from a client's perspective. It's a really key point of seeing that. And then with OneClick, it will obviously help your GDPR compliance efforts because it links directly to your client records held in CCH Central. So it's one hub of information, seeing where all documents have been approved or rejected to and from a client. So if I drop back into CCH Central here, I'm just going to close all my tabs here just to speed it up and go back into my client, John Bain. And go to John Bain's Document Center. So I'm going to select a document I'm going to send out to the client now, and I'm going to select this particular engagement letter that I want to send out to the client. So at the top, I've got published to CCH OneClick. You can, if you wanted to, select multiple documents on the left-hand side and click Create PDF, and it will collate those documents that are separate currently into one PDF, which a lot of sites currently do because they don't like sending Word or Excel documents out to the client. They want to PDF them before they get sent out. So tick the documents you want to send and click Publish to OneClick at the top. And what we will see is we get a nice little pop-up box in the middle. It looks very similar to an email. We try and keep the functionality as close to it as we can because we're trying to effectively replace email correspondence with CCH OneClick. Now you can see it's coming from me, Nick Moss, and it's going to John Bain. Now, because I'm doing it from a person, I can't change that. I can't send it to someone else as well. It's really, really secure that it's going only to John Bain. Now, the CC function is for people internally at your practice. It's not for copying in his wife or copying anyone else related to John Bain. It's copying people in internally. I can type in a subject or text in here if I wanted to. And I could also insert a template. So we would suggest that the sites who are using CCH OneClick currently, please do have your templates up and running as efficiently as possible because it really will drive speed of using the system as much as possible. Now, if I just choose my welcome one here and click insert, it's going to bring through a subject one saying, welcome to Bennett Rowe Messages and Documents Facility. And you can see we can have merge fields in here where it's going to bring through the client name. We can bring through loads of different information into this text here. Now, the document there, engagement letter sole trader, is included there. But what you might want to do is to send this letter for approval. So if I click the paperclip, this is where you tick the box saying that requires approval. So you have to tick that box there, which it will send to the client saying that requires approval. Now, the folder area is also really important here because this is where you decide where from your client side it's going to be filed in your client's folder structure. So if I save this under, say, correspondence 2019, you have full control over what folder structure and filing structure your client has at their end. So you can set this up internally for you. Okay. Click OK, and I now have the ability to send. You can actually also turn off the functionality for certain employees to click send, so they would have to send it to a reviewer first before it gets sent out. Okay, so that is a functionality that certain firms have implemented, where they don't want potentially junior members of staff being able to send things through the portal without it being checked first. I would click send, and that would now go out to the client for approval. Okay. This will be particularly useful around the around end of tax season, being able to send out tax letters and tax returns out to the client. What we can see now is that this document here is pending approval. So that little pending one there, highlighting blue. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put my client hats on and pretend that I'm John Bain and go to John Bain's email inbox. Okay, so I'm just going to come out of, going to go into here and go to his Outlook. I'm just going to, or his Gmail, sorry. I'm just going to refresh this. We should see a new emails come in there saying you have a new message from Bennett Rowe & Co. Workspace. Now, Bennett Rowe & Co. is the name of my internal practice in CCH. And what we have here is a message there saying, Dear John, there's a new message for you from Bennett Rowe & Co. on your secure workspace. Please click this link to log in and view the message. Now, this message here is the one that's consistent with every single message that gets sent out from your practice. And I would personally recommend that you change this, where it says, please click this link to log in and view the message. I would say, please go to our website, click the client login button and log in from there. It's just that a few email systems could see that as a phishing email because they might not recognize the email that it's come through from and quarantine it. So please do look at changing that. And it just drives a bit more traffic to your website. They feel like they're dealing with you rather than a system that they might not be aware of, such as accountant space. So if they go to your website and log in, it becomes a bit more of a personal service. However, because Bennett Rowe & Co. is not a genuine company, I would have to click this link to take me to my OneClick environment. Okay. What we can also do with OneClick is obviously existing sites will know this. We can white label it using your logo and color scheme at the top, whereas mine is black with Bennett Rowe & Co there. Now, if I log in there with my email account for John Bain, okay, and with his password, it's worth noting that if your client forgets their password, they have the ability to, it's all self-serve. So they should be able to reset it themselves using either questions that they've set themselves or with a text reminder service if they've got their mobile phone number in the CCH system. However, if they forget their email address, there's not much you can do at that point in time. That's their own fault. Now, if I click login, remember this is all the client side. What we would get on the right-hand side here is a nice little area where it shows who the partner is. And you can have a nice little picture in terms of who the client area is and show who's responsible for looking after their client record. You have the partner, manager, all the staff members included down on the right-hand side. And like I said, have a nice little picture, shows a bit more personal service there. But on the left-hand side, you've got a messages and documents facility. If I click on that one, what we'll see here are two swim lanes. So I've got one there for John Bain and one for Batts and Belfries Company Limited. It's really important to know this because John Bain is also the director for a company called Batts and Belfries. Now, what we've got there is one login to see multiple bits of information. He doesn't have to have one login for his information, one login for Batts and Belfries, one to see both. And also, if there are multiple directors of Batts and Belfries Company Limited, John Bain would only see the documents that have been sent to him personally. It doesn't work on a bit like a Dropbox functionality or a number of our competitors where you put all the documents relating to a company in there and everyone who's got access sees it. It works on a user by user basis. So only the documents which you send to them personally, they can see. Works great on that 5 director essence where you might be sending messages and documents to one director quite a lot and the other 4, it's not really interesting them. So don't send it to the other 4, just send it to that one. The other 4 don't even know that document's gone to and from the user. So yeah, please do make use of that. Now, in terms of here, I could click on messages, I could click on documents or documents to approve. But if I click on messages here, what we will see there is welcome to the Bennett Rowe & Co messages and documents facility. That's the message I sent at 10:49 on the 16th of April. If I click on it, we'll see there's the message I sent and there is the document. Now, he's not able to tick the box and approve or reject until he opens the document. So that's just a bit of compliance work there to make sure that your client has actually seen the document before they approve it. A really key part of that. And then this is the document which we've sent. It's just an engagement letter. Don't need to see any much more than that. But I now have the ability to tick the box and approve or reject. Now, if you click approve, you have to put in your password, but if you click reject, you have to put in your password and a reason as to why. So if I put unreasonable terms of service, which hopefully none of your clients have ever said to you, and then click reject, what we would see is that in the CCH system, we would get a nice little pop-up box in the bottom right-hand corner telling me that John Bain's rejected a document. I would get an email into my inbox telling me that John Bain's rejected a document. It would be on my message center in the client. It will be on my homepage, and it will then very shortly update this line here to say rejected from pending. There we go. It now says rejected there. And if I do click on it, it shows John Bain rejected it at 10:54 with the reason unreasonable terms of service. So you get a nice full view of how a client goes through the messaging service there. So that really is our one-click product in terms of messaging document side, in terms of seeing how easy it is to send a document to the client for approval or sending anything to it, whether it be a Sage backup coming to you or whether it be engagement letter, working papers, final accounts, tax return. You can send it through the document management system using one-click. So for those people who said they're not using an electronic portal, having this one set up integrated with the rest of your compliance products in CCH could really drive your efficiencies with all the other products that you've got in there. So it looks like we've got a couple of questions that have come through in here. Okay.
Nick, I just think we've got 5 minutes, so maybe we'll just pick a couple at the end.
Yeah, we'll go through those at the end. Yeah, absolutely. In terms of what we were going to go through here, I'll come back to this. We were looking at, in terms of document messaging, look at the secure document exchange, publish at the click of a button. We've done that through there. We've seen the two-way collaboration of messages. So instead of just sending documents, you can also send messages at the same time. So what we're trying to do, as I mentioned before, is to move away from email transfer, even if it's just questions to and from your client, on the basis that if you send emails, I'm sure people have heard horror stories of people selecting the wrong email address when sending a confidential document or text to a client. So utilizing one click to send messages, things like that, would stop that, because as I said before, you can only send it to the client which you're in at the time. And then visibility of everything in the practice whilst out of the office. So one of the things to also notice with OneClick is you also get a practice mobile application that you can all have, you and your staff can have, and you can access every single message or document that you've got saved in document management out of the office on your phone as well. There is a security around that regarding logging in using your CCH password. So if you lose your phone, don't worry, no one else can get access to that through the application. And that application is free. So I would suggest that you go and try that if you're not using it at the minute. The CCH Practice Portal app, it's on the App Store and Google Play. So I think we can now pass back over to Evan to go through the final parts of this presentation around measuring value and also the questions at the end that have come through.
Brilliant, thanks, Nick. Okay, so just a couple of things to think about. So if you are if you're looking at a document management system and you're thinking about, actually, is this something that we want to be considering? A couple of things to think about from value. So how quickly, either when you're in the office or when you're working remotely, how quickly are your team able to access files that they need? How much are you actually paying to physically keep documents? And what's the cost of actually getting a document approved right now? Now, these three things are things that you can actually really measure and cost. So you know how much it costs for an envelope, for a piece of paper, for a stamp, etc. If you're getting things, if you're emailing documents out and just getting your client to reply back and say, yeah, that's okay, yes, that's cheaper, but is that admissible in court? Things such as how much time is spent resending documents. So when I was in practice, something that came up quite often, you get an urgent phone call or email where someone would say, look, I need a copy of my tax return, or I need a copy of the signed accounts, and I need them in the next 20 minutes because I'm with my bank manager and I forgot to bring them with me. And so if you've got something such as an online portal where you're able to store documents for and share documents with your client, just means that they can self-serve. So great thing about that, it means that you're not wasting your time and therefore your money surfacing documents out and resending documents out to people. Your clients are also getting this in a much quicker timescale, which comes into the final point where we're going, what value would you give to the impression that your clients have with your practice and of the way that they interact with you? And obviously, impression is completely intangible, but the impression that your clients have of you is completely invaluable. Couple of questions just to look at. So Nick, because we're out of time, so we won't do any demos. I'll just scan through some of these and answer. What have we got? Okay, so a few around HR and storing documents. Can I store Excel working papers in document management? Yes, you could do, but actually there's a working papers function in accounts production and audit that you'd be using there. HR function, can we restrict the viewing and editing of specific document types? Yes, that's something that can be done. HR function also, could document management be used for filing employee expenses? Yeah, you could do that if you've got a separate practice management time recording expense system. However, if you've got the CCH practice management, as you'd expect, that all completely ties in. We're not accountants. If we use document management, would this be standalone or could it integrate? A couple of options there. So it's all fully API'd up, so you can either do some work yourself in order to integrate that in. And in fact, when you see the product working there, the different products within Central actually call an API in document management. So you could do some programming work there, or possibly Scan Profiler. So Nick, and actually this ties in, there was a question from Dawn who said, we scan documents in using a network multifunction device, network printer. So rather than having an attached scanner, we use a network device. Can you scan stuff in? Do you want to answer that one around the Scan Profiler and dropping things into a watch folder?
Yeah, absolutely. So literally it is a case of scanning it into a folder on the network drive that you can access from your from your machine. And then where I went in the scan area to new in the top left hand corner, you just browse to that, you go to new and from file, and then browse to that location where you've stored that scanned document. Yeah, and it pulls it through on the left hand side, exactly what I just did on the screen. So yeah, absolutely, you can do that.
Cool. So yeah, it's important stuff through. The profiler I love is brilliant. If you can have, if you're scanning stuff in through a document through a multifunction device, they can just pop up on your home screen, can't they? That you can, so they're automatically in your virtual inbox that you can be managing. There's document approval in one click. Can documents have the equivalent of a wet signature? So okay, so you guys must already be using CCH one click. So at the moment, documents are approved in their entirety, but there is coming this year. We have another product, existing Wolters Kluwer product that we are bringing in the UK. We've got some pilot customers as well at the moment using this, and that will give you the equivalent of a wet signature onto a document there. And then a final one for you, Nick. I think here we only use personal tax. Is there any advantage to having this document management system or compared to any other?
Yeah, the key thing we always look with our personal tax clients in integrating with our document management system is looking at the tax return bundle. So the tax return bundle, if any firms aren't using it, is a free part of the system where it can create a tax letter with information in the tax return already populated onto that letter. It's very, very smart piece of the system, and it can automatically send to the client's one-click account from within personal tax and then save it straight away into document management. So if you weren't using our document management system alongside personal tax, you'd have to export that and save it and upload it. Whereas using ours, it would save it in a consistent terminology, so people would know where to find it every single time. So yeah, I would always recommend that if you are using our personal tax or any of our compliance systems, it makes sense to have the document management system that you're using integrated with those. So if you have got an external document management system from one of our competitors, it's probably worth having a chat with your account manager just to see what options are available to you to have an integrated one with our compliance systems.
Cool, lovely, thank you. Look, we're 3 minutes over, and there are a whole load of questions which we can't answer right now. What we will do is we'll collate all of these questions, we'll answer all of them, and then get those sent out to everyone here. So information just here. If you're looking for support, there's some details on there. If you're after some training, then there's details in there. And if you don't use any of our products, phone number or email address, get in contact. We'd love to talk with you. All right, brilliant. Thank you very much, everyone, for giving us your time. I hope that you have a great rest of the day, and we'll catch up with you soon. Thanks very much.